are listening to the most comprehensive paranormal archive on the internet.
Welcome to Salsido Paranormal. I'm your host, James Salsido, and tonight we are revisiting my experiences. And as always, you can find all episodes of my shows along with the show, along with links to social media, ways to listen, and ways to support the show at the website, and that is salsidoparanormal.com. That's SALSIDO paranormal.com. And support is never expected, but always appreciated, as there are expenses in making these shows. And there are many ways to support the show. You can share the show with others, and rate and review it on your favorite podcast platforms. You can sign up for the Patreon feed and get all the extra content there for as little as $1 a month, which, by the way, there will be starting soon, weekly episodes over there. Again, excuse me. And you can also check out the merchandise store and get all kinds of shirts and some other items there with designs made by friends of the show. Speaking of friends of the show, please check out the links in every episode description to those friends. That would be Jen, the Arcane Observer, who I'll be talking with shortly here, who has her own channel and is the co-host of this show on weekends whenever she's able to join me. And then Ricky of the Anything is Possible podcast, who I join usually on Sundays to talk all things paranormal over on his channel. And then Michael Strange, who is the host of Troubled Minds Radio, which I call into quite often, and the Troubled Minds Radio Network, KUAP, digital broadcasting, where you can hear all kinds of amazing shows, as well as my own, online 24/7 for free. So I believe that covers everything. Thank you all for your patience over this last couple weeks here. At least the last week anyway, last couple weeks really. I had to take some time off from recording here and there, and the usual Saturday show was not the usual Saturday show. Things happen and have to be dealt with. So yeah, but that's all. Hopefully no more breaks for a while. We'll see what happens. But yeah, thank you all for being here and listening in. And this is a series of shows that we started a little while back, sort of going every other week usually, where I talk about my experiences, basically recount everything I can remember, and then of course I get Jen's feedback on them, and comments and questions and all that. So, and then tonight we're going to be starting with my apartment. The last couple we've done other houses in the family that I went to first, basically, and had experiences at before I got here. And now we're dealing with where I live right now. So where I've been living for about 20 years now, which is really wild to think about. But yeah, so might as well get this going here, and welcome Jen. Thank you for coming on to the show with me again.
Yeah, I always love being here and talking about these ideas with you, James. You know, especially right now, the discussion about your current apartment, to live in a place for 20 years, an apartment for 20 years, and imagining, too, the history before itself. And it is fascinating to stay in a location for so long that it becomes almost imprinted with your energy because you've just been there for so long, and but prior to that, there's no telling. And also, too, I mean, the land itself, there's so many different factors that could be at work in it. And then you have the surrounding apartments and surrounding buildings around the property. But then you have your own personal experiences, which I'm really excited to hear about. So thanks for having me.
Yeah, no problem. It's the last couple that we did of these. I mean, all the shows. I always appreciate you coming on, and you make all the shows that you're on with me better. And so yeah, I will get started because I see you muted up already because you are very well used to doing this. So I appreciate that. I will get started here, and really it starts not long after I got in here, and I'm not sure, the first little thing that happened, I don't know if it's tied to anything or not, if it's just one of those random experiences, but back then I had what do you call it, a sectional couch. At the time, it was my grandparents' old couch. And there's one day I was just sitting on the floor. At the time, I could do that easier, and just playing solitaire, just playing cards on the floor and listening to music, and I got a phone call, and of course, eventually I got up and I was on the phone. And I turned the music off and everything, and uh, I sat back down a while later. I don't know, 20, 30 minutes later. It was my cousin. Sometimes when we talk, it's not so much nowadays, but back then we used to talk a lot more, a lot longer anyway. And I sat down, and when I did, I could feel something under my leg where I had been sitting. And now I had been sitting there earlier for, I don't know, half hour, hadn't felt anything. And when I took out what was beneath my leg, it didn't hurt me or anything, but it was just on the floor. It was this paper clip. And I found that odd because I don't use paper clips. Uh, I don't really deal with a lot of paperwork. I just don't use them much. I don't even know where that one came from. I do get them every once in a great while with paperwork or whatever, but I just don't use them. And I know it was not under my leg when I sat down earlier. And it was bent in a weird way. It was almost like it had been completely undone from its regular shape, and it was like almost like an arrow shape kind of a thing. I'm not sure if that was intentional or not, but I thought it was odd, and especially since it was just not there and then it was there. So that was the first little thing. But not long after that, there was this one day I was here at home. I just gotten home from, no, I'm sorry, I'm skipping ahead a little bit. That's the second experience. The first experience, and I'm trying to break this into groups of things that have to do with certain entities as far as I could tell. And so I'm just thinking ahead here, which is how that happens sometimes, skipping ahead when I'm talking, but I really don't want to do that. So it started here with one night back when I at first when I moved here, I did sleep in the bedroom, and I have my beds in there and everything. Now I sleep in the living room. I have my bed out here because it's just me and Logan, my cat. And by the time I had everything set up in the bedroom, and I went to bed one late night, and it was dark out, and I had all the lights off because that's why even back then, before my eyes got to be sensitive, I still like to sleep in the dark. And so I had gone to bed, and I thought I woke up because I was still laying in bed, but I could see a light was on in the living room area, and I knew that I hadn't left any lights on, and I could hear someone moving around in the living room, which startled me. I live alone, and then I heard this man's voice say, "Where are you? I can't find you. Where did you go?" And I froze because there was a guy in my apartment. But then I started to notice I was getting tired and everything was starting to fade. And I realized it was some kind of a dream. And so it ended, and I didn't think anything about it for a while. Um, until a little while later, the next connected experience I had, and I know this now after putting everything sort of together, I had gone and done errands one day and come back home, and at the time I had a part of the sectional was actually, I believe, a couch bed, and I've been was that no I'm sorry, because we got rid of the sectional because it got to be too old. So I had actually gotten a love seat, but it was a couch bed, and I had fallen asleep on it one day after I got home from doing errands because I put on a DVD. At the time, DVDs are still big, and fallen asleep. And as I was laying there, I felt someone sit down on the bed next to me and lean against my leg. And so obviously I was surprised, and I started to wake up, and I muttered something like, who's there? Is anyone there? and I heard this young teenage girl voice, like 13, 14 at the oldest, year old girl's voice, laugh and then say, "How can there be anyone here when you've double locked the door?" Which I had just done before I laid down. And that woke me up. So I started to sit up and I opened my eyes. And as I was sitting up and opening my eyes, the pressure lifted from the bed and my leg. But I didn't see or hear anything moving away from the bed as I was sitting up or once I sat up, which didn't make sense because it's a small apartment. It's not a studio, but it's easy to get from one end to the other like in a minute. Excuse me. So that was when I started to wonder what was going on around here. Um, and there was a couple of times after that where when I'd come home from doing errands or going out for whatever reasons, in the middle of the day, I would open the front door, and this was before I had Logan, my cat. I would hear the same girl's voice just for a second or so, talking and or laughing, and then it would just be gone as soon as I had opened the door and then closed it. And so I started to get the feeling that there was someone here. And not long after that, I had another dream. I went to bed one night in the bedroom still, and I had this dream that I was sitting on the floor in the main closet in the bedroom. It's a larger one. It sort of has along one wall. It has a larger closet and then two smaller ones. No, only one smaller one on off to one side. But I was sitting on the floor in the larger one, and the closet was empty, which is not in real life. And there was someone sitting next to me on the floor, and it was a girl in this nightgown. I didn't see much of it because she was sitting down. I could just see the white fabric. And I turned to look at her as she turned to look at me, and it was a young girl, a teenage girl. And but I was startled because when I looked at her, I could see that she was starting to sort of decompose, which is really freaky. I didn't get any negative sense from her at all. It wasn't that. It was just the fact that, again, she was not living. And of course, it startled me awake. So I started wondering what was going on, and it felt like everything was leading up, or like this person was trying to contact me to tell me something. And so the last major thing that happened with that was this one day, I used to have my younger half sister on my mom's side come over during the summertime when she was a kid, like 10 or 11 or 12 maybe at the oldest. She would come over once a week during the summer, during her summer vacation from school. Her dad would bring her over early in the morning at like 5 or 5:30. And a lot of times when he did that, we would both go back to sleep for a couple hours. I'd let her use my bedroom, the better bed, basically, and I would sleep out in the couch bed. And this one morning, after we had both, she had gone to the room and I had just fallen asleep on the couch bed, I had a dream that I was still in my apartment and still in the living room, but I was moving furniture around and I was trying to find someone. And there was this really weird sense of, I don't know if it was duality or just a sense of it was me, but it wasn't me. And it was my sister I was looking for, but it wasn't my sister. And of course, in the dream, as I was moving stuff around, I said, "Where are you? I can't find you. Where did you go?" And walked all around the living room of the apartment, all around the rest of the apartment, except for the bedroom. For whatever reason, I didn't go in there. And I even walked outside and looked around, and all the apartments, including my own, the whole building complex was on fire. And which is part of why I was looking for my sister, for this other person. And that's where the dream started to fade, and I started to wake up. But as I was waking up, I saw something to the side off to the side of the couch bed. And it was that same nightgown that the girl had been wearing. It was that girl walking past the side of the couch bed toward the back of the apartment where I have I have a sliding glass patio door, and with the window on either side of it, one of those door wall window things. And I wanted to try to communicate with her, but my sister was here, and I didn't want anything to happen that would make sound or cause her to wonder what's going on, frighten her when she's never had any kind of paranormal experience. And so I just had to let this apparition of this spirit, it felt like what it was. I always keep in mind that things can be not what they appear to be, but also I think sometimes we can tell what's what in some cases. But I just had to let this figure, this girl, walk by, and eventually she did, and she walked out of sight, and I couldn't see her anymore. And I laid there until I heard my sister waking up and moving around the bedroom. And that's when I started to put things together in my mind. There had been somewhere, I don't think it was this apartment building. I think that was all, the images of this place was just being used to tell a story somehow. There was a fire somewhere, and this girl, I think, either went into a small space or got stuck in a small space. I'm not sure. And during this fire, and I think the fire is what killed her eventually. And I think that there was someone looking for her, and they couldn't find her. And I don't know if that someone was looking for her to save her or not. I'm not sure. I've kind of gone back and forth on that over the years. But anyway, so I think that's a good place to stop it as far as that's that whole set of. Oh, there's one more little thing, and then we can talk here, Jen. But there was this one day where I was wondering about all this and trying to figure out, do I want to research this, try to figure all this out and see what really happened. And by this point, I had been listening to some TV shows and paranormal TV shows, and just starting to listen to podcasts and things. And I had heard that spirits could hear your thoughts. And so I decided to just reach out one day in the middle of the day, and I just thought out everywhere as far as I could towards this girl. You know, I would like to help if I can, but it'd be helpful, it'd be useful if I had a name to go with, or to start with, to research all this. And I got one. And the first name was Maggie. And I won't say the name of I won't say the last name that she gave me, only because it is the name of a major street in town here, in my town where I live. And so it's just in case there's still anyone in the family left, I don't want to cause any drama, but it really is odd, the whole thing. And after that, I never really had any other experiences with her, except this one night I heard her whispering as I was laying there, something about being buried by the church, and then that was it. And I've had other experiences here, a lot of other ones, but those, I never felt like it was her ever again with any of my other experiences here. And so yeah, that's sort of the first major set of things that had happened here, that I was able to, in my mind, they all seem connected. But I think that covers all that. But so yeah, I'm curious to hear what you think about all that, Jen, as well.
Yeah, there was a lot there that makes a lot of sense. You know, so when you were on the phone with your cousin, was it the same cousin from your prior experiences
Yes.
when you were talking? Okay. So that's really interesting. And then the paperclip reminds me of, like, the way that you say it was pulled apart. You know, sometimes people who will fidget with things will do that. Do things like that whenever I'm thinking or something like that. But whoever had been messing with that paperclip to move it that way had been, like, just kind of fiddling with it, I assume. That's how it gets into that kind of position. But it reminds me too of, like, it was definitely trying to get your attention. by, and then the moving from the bedroom to the living room, it's so interesting because I've preferred that myself in not every house I've lived in, but like in like two, different locations specifically where it's really weird, but wanting to move from not wanting to really use the bedroom, preferring to kind of sleep in the living room, in a way, which is really odd. I don't know what that is. It almost feels like the energy of the person. I don't know. Maybe that's what it is. The person who lived there before or something, but it just feels like you can't get comfortable, but the living room just feels so much more comfortable. And I've had that myself on a few occasions where I just kind of make that my room. I've done that twice specifically. And then the other thing I was thinking, they hearing the voice, where are you? How long had you been living there when you heard the voice that said that?
Less than a year.
Okay.
May have even been less than half a year.
So you recently just moved in.
Yeah.
And I wonder, I was thinking at the time when you were saying that, if it was someone speaking to whoever had been there before, was what I thought, or to you,
Right.
I thought that when you were talking about that, and it's so weird too, like in a dream. But well, anyway, though. But back to the talking thing. It's like how you can be here. How can anyone when she said, "How can anyone be here?" When you've locked, the door or something to that effect, whatever she had said, like you were being watched and observed. So she, like in the dream, she had watched you lock the door, or how can anyone be here? There was some kind of observation, or she was relaying a memory of an experience when you had that dream, about
Yeah.
I thought that's really interesting. But I definitely was thinking when you were telling that part that she must have lived there or maybe nearby in another apartment or in a building that had been in that location or something to that effect. And then the dreaming of someone else, like when you were sitting in the floor in the closet, I've always thought of that kind of experience too, like where it's not necessarily, it's like you're taking up the position of the individual almost, if that makes sense. Like you're seeing what they saw or experiencing what they saw. But then when you saw her next to you too, it just, it reminds me so much. And going into the closet, I used to do that too. But the going into the closet or sitting into the closet, I did that like on two different occasions. I specifically remember as a child where it was kind of a safe space. It feels like that.
Right.
It's kind of that sort of thing. But basically that you're experiencing the dream as someone else, like you began, like you described in the end there, and like I began to think in the end of it all that I wonder if there had ever been a fire. And then even when it reminds me of like when the man came in saying, "Where are you? I can't find you," that he may have been speaking to her, and basically exactly what she came to, that your exact conclusion before you even said that was exactly what I was thinking too. And also that's some kind of mediumship on your half.
Right. Yep. Yeah, and it was you are right about the bedroom. Like I never got a negative feeling from there, but I just never could really get totally comfortable in there. And I felt bad after the fact because I only found out after. But my sister never really liked sleeping in there either. So, and she wasn't aware of any of the things I experienced until years later. So there's something about that room. And that's not a negative thing, but it's just like there's the energy there is just different. I don't know, how else to describe it, but it's just not the best to sleep in every night.
Yeah. So like one of the houses I lived in had it was an apartment. It wasn't a house. It was a fourplex. And the bedroom was a decent bedroom. And it was really nice and everything. It made perfect sense. So I tried to make it work. I put a dresser in there, I had the bed in there. And I laid in there like one night. And I was just
Hmm.
like, oh gosh, I didn't think much of it. I just couldn't get comfortable. And I just felt it wasn't a spooky feeling. It just felt really uncomfortable. And I ended up just at really early in the morning, just getting up and going to the couch in the living
Right.
room. And then I from that point on would push the couch over like a little, it was like a little tiny, like sectional sort of couch that had like a little love
Mhm.
seat and then another love seat type of thing. And I'd push those together and just sleep on that. And it made a little box basically. But I never went back. I think I went back to sleeping in that room like one or two more times. And the one time that I did, that's when I heard like a voice over my head. And then on another occasion, so there was something about it. You see what I'm saying? That felt uneasy
Yeah.
to me. And then there was another house I moved into, and the room just felt really weird. And once again, I was just like, I'm just going to move into the living room, even though it was a really nice bedroom. And I just couldn't get comfortable in there. And I just felt so much better in the living room. And then if I would force myself to sleep and use the bedroom as you properly should, it would just feel creepy. I would get the weirdest, most
Right.
uncomfortable feeling. And so I just wouldn't do it. I wouldn't make myself do it. But something odd about that.
Yeah. And I made the excuse for my case that, I wanted to be by my computer and everything and just, but I mean, it is part of the reason was that room was just not the best. Um, and of course, I mean, who knows? I always wonder, like, how many people before me have had no sensitivity to any of these things, and they slept perfectly fine in that room. Like, I have no idea, and I do believe that happens. But obviously, with me, I pick up on things, and so yeah, that didn't work. Um, and that has nothing to do with the shadow figure and or presence that I felt in the closet in that room. In fact, when I slept in there at the time, I never felt, I never sensed that presence that was in the closet that would only be there at night. Um, and I never felt that there at that time. So I don't know if it moved in after I moved out. I don't know if it was there and it was making sure it did hold back and didn't bother me, at least not intentionally. Or if I was picking up on it and I just didn't realize that's what it was. But it felt different. The presence in the closet versus the overall feeling I got from that room, they felt different. One was a presence, one was more of just an energy or a feeling. It wasn't the same thing.
Oh, I've had that
So,
too. There was
yeah.
one where there appears to be two different types of energies. There was in that house I was talking about where I wouldn't sleep in the bedroom. It just had this
Mhm.
sort of I don't know how to explain it, but where you just kind of didn't want to be in there. Like
Right.
it seemed like I don't know how to it's really difficult to describe. And there was a second bedroom that it was a two-bedroom house, but like the second bedroom that was kind of in the middle of the house. This isn't like just a little old farmhouse, but the second room in the middle of the house, when you'd walk by it, I swear it felt like there was a breeze, for one. Almost like
Mm.
there was like the way that maybe the house was set up or something like that, but you could almost feel like a breeze. And then it also felt like somebody was like that watcher feeling. That
Hmm.
something was like it was someone in there or something watching you or
Yeah.
something when you'd walk by. Or it was the strangest feeling. And so I would oftentimes just it wasn't really scary, but the bedroom in this case, like the room in the middle in the house I'm talking about, the second bedroom, it did not feel scary. It just kind of, and I didn't use that room either. It didn't feel scary. It just felt also occupied or like that there was some type of watchful presence and like some kind of corridor type of feeling or something. But then the bedroom, it did kind of feel not menacing or anything like that, but just not comfortable, not comforting, not a bedroom. It was really weird. I don't know how to describe it, but the living room just felt very neutral. And so I just slept in the
Yes.
living room. Same thing. So it is so odd, and in your case in particular, though, it does sound like some form of mediumship through the dreams and communication in that manner and the slight dream state in between where you're able to
Right.
actually pick up on the exact entity or the exact spirit and what they were trying to communicate. And I thought the same thing that you concluded, that you know even before the whole fire thing, just that something like that had happened, or like that he had been calling out to her, like, "Where are you? I can't find you." And all
Right.
of that kind of coming together like that is just really interesting. But then, like in the dream state, almost like you're seeing it from her perspective, and then it's so strange and really interesting.
Yeah, yeah. And it's just amazing to me that once that whole thing was done, once she basically got her story to me, then she was good. She didn't really have to do anything else. Uh, so I'm hoping that means, she's wherever she went to, she went somewhere where she's happy, wherever that is. Um,
Yeah. And I think that
so
that must have been the case. Because, I mean, oftentimes, if, it's really strange like that. It's something as simple as that can kind of bring things to a sort of a peaceful closure of sorts where it's like she just wanted to kind of let you know. And then maybe she'd been there before for a while, and hadn't been recognized or something. So that's really
yeah,
interesting.
that's what I'm wondering too. I mean, did she ever try to tell anyone else, and they're just, how many other people before me were just not able to pick up anything from her at all, or they, they were really frightened because some people, they just, everyone's different in what they can sort of handle and accept when it comes to these things. And I just wonder, did she try with other people before that lived here? And I was just maybe the first one that was able to pick up on what she was sending, and also was accepting enough of all this being um, real and not automatically negative, to so that she was able to finally get that out. And then, yeah, that was all she needed.
Yes, and also too with your with the other little girl that would come stay, be dropped off early in the morning and then go to
Mhm.
sleep and everything. I wonder if that too, I don't know.
Yeah,
I imagine, yeah, something with that
it could
seems,
be because they were around the same age. So I'm
yeah,
trying to think here. Now, when the first experiences happened, I don't think my sister hadn't started coming over before the first experiences in this sequence of experiences. So, but she started coming over more like in the middle,
yeah,
and near the end. But it's still, I mean, I'm sure that once she did start coming over, and again, I do think you're right. This
the same kind of
spirit was
energy.
around, and
Yeah,
yeah, and saw me and saw what I was doing, and saw my sister and everything, and luckily didn't do anything while we were here. At least not that I know of. Um, yeah, nothing I could ever really tell was her. We did have just one little funny, kind of funny side experience that my sister and I did have here one time, and luckily it didn't freak her out too much, I don't think. But there was this one day our mom had to go to the dentist here in town, and so she dropped off my sister to be with me while my mom was at the dentist, and so she left, and a while later, my sister and I were just here, and I forget what we were doing. We were doing separate things. She was reading a book or something like that, but we heard a knock at the front door, and I thought, oh, that's weird. That was a quick appointment. Went and looked at the door, out the window, because there's a window right next to the door. No one there. No sounds, no one walking away, nothing. I thought, oh, that's weird. Okay. And then walked away. And then a few minutes later, there was another knock on the door. And that's weird. Okay, well, it must be my mom. Must be her mom. She must be back by now. And I went and looked at the door. Nothing. And I thought, okay, this is not normal. Uh, and so I walked away again. And a few minutes later, less than 10 minutes later, knock at the door again. And I was listening at this point. There was no sound coming up to the door. And I went and looked, of course, nothing there. And so I told my sister, well, we're just gonna ignore it for now, and it must be just someone playing a prank or something. And so a while later, heard a knock at the door, and of course I went and looked, and it was our mom. But those first three times, there was no one there visible at the door. But now that I'm thinking about it, that door, for the first few years I lived here, it used to randomly unlock if it was locked, or it would lock if it was unlocked. And it always did this when I was here at home, and I never heard the locking or unlocking actions. And it would do that when I would leave the door unlocked because I was expecting company, someone from my family, or usually my family, and I would unlock the door so that when they got here, I could just say it's open, and they would try the door and it'd be locked. And it's just really weird. It used to do that. Someone used to do that. I don't know who it was, and luckily it stopped eventually. But they used to, and it never did it in a way where it locked me out. It wasn't like a malicious thing or a really negative thing. It's just sometimes it was just a little bit mischievous there, and just wanted to let me know whether they were here. Sometimes I wonder if the same person or entity that did that is the one that will move my blinds or tap on my blinds every once in a while here, just to get my attention, just to say hi, because I get that once in a while here too now. So
One thing I was thinking
anyway,
while you're talking about the knocking on the door, what
hmm
makes me think, but did you open it at any point?
no,
So that's interesting. Like you just kept
yep,
looking out the window and,
yeah,
to check, and then a little while later there'd be another knock and or knocking. And so it's really interesting about that. And then the locks thing, I had a house too. I moved around a lot, and there was one house I lived in that was really peculiar in a lot of ways, but the back door, I would lock the back door, and it would come open, or same kind of thing, weird thing with the door. And I put like a butter knife up at the very top to, like, it's a trick to like keep the door closed in case the wind's blowing it open or something. But I was locking it. It was a working lock, but it would still do that. And eventually it did stop, but it was like one of those weird things with the
mhm,
door kind of somebody coming and going, it seemed. And I don't believe it was a person coming and going from the house. It was as if
right,
I did think it was really something like, you know, just something odd with the door. But
yeah,
it did stop. It stopped just, out of nowhere, and just stopped for no, and there was no more issue with it. But yeah, I'm familiar with that. But I think it's interesting you didn't open the door. And so therefore, so that's really neat.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I just if I don't know who's coming to the door, I'm not gonna open it usually. So and it has to be someone I recognize, and if I don't, then we're gonna talk through the window, you know, until I know who you are.
Oh, yeah,
And
absolutely. Yeah.
but yeah, I yeah, it's weird. There's so I had that happen. I've had times where I thought I had closed a door in the apartment, like either the bedroom or bathroom door, and I'd find it open. And I don't know for sure if those are paranormal or not. Um, so it's hard to say. But yeah, so it's a little stuff like that. Now with the blinds moving, I did have one other person that saw them moving one time, uh, and it was while I was not in the apartment, so that was kind of cool. I can't say I've influenced them in any way, or suggestion or whatever. My older sister for a time was cleaning the apartment for me, and there was this one time she was doing that, and she had just gotten here, and I had laundry going in the laundry room in the clubhouse, the apartment complex clubhouse building. And so once she got here, I said, I'll be back in a little bit. I gotta go get clothes. So I went and I got clothes, and I came back, and my older sister, when I came in, she said, "Do your blinds by your patio doorway just move on their own sometimes, just one at a time?" And I said, "Yeah, usually it's the one in the middle." And she said, "Well, they're doing that now." But she pointed, and it was one at the end. And she said, "And it wasn't Logan. It wasn't your cat." And because she said I was watching, and Logan wasn't anywhere near them when it started. And but Logan was also watching, and the thing was still moving as I got inside, as I walked in, and I saw it moving as well. And Logan was just crouched, laying on the floor, on her stomach, looking at it too. So so yeah, it's and it used to be where it was only ever the one middle blind, but once in a while it'll be a different one. Now instead of that, a lot of times the blinds in the back won't move. The ones here behind where I'm sitting, but the ones in the front, the regular the pull up, pull down window blinds, um, I'll hear it sounds like something taps them to move them a little bit, and then that's it. And so it's really odd. It's like someone just every once in a while likes to say hello, and that's all they do, and nothing else happens, and nothing negative, and no further communication in any way. Just that, hey, I'm here, kind of thing is what I get. The feeling I get from it.
Yeah, that's really neat too. I mean, it's a subtle thing to move, and but in the quiet of a house and everything, it'd be noticeable. And in a small house, it'd be noticeable. But yeah, I don't know. It could be somebody looking out the window, or who knows, or
Right.
if it wasn't, like being low like that. Perhaps you mentioned before that you may have thought that there was like a cat or something
Yes.
cat like. Yeah, that's neat
Yep.
too.
I have, and that's a good. We can go over that. I can go over that right now here for a little bit because I've had a few experiences with that. I had the first experience I had with that. I had it happen before I even got Logan, so I know it wasn't Logan. Um, there was a couple of times here, like within the first few years I moved here or lived here, where every once in a while I would get the feeling, and anyone that has a cat knows this feeling, or maybe a small dog, where they just walk by real close to your legs or your feet, not quite rubbing against you, but just like that air movement and that feeling of something being right there next to your ankles and just walking by. And I had that a couple times, and I had to go sort of back and forth, almost like it was trying to rub against me, but obviously it wasn't physical, so I wasn't getting that direct sensation of actual like cat fur rubbing against me, but I was getting that movement of air, um, and it was
Well, it could
always
also be, what's interesting is it reminds me of like
yeah,
you're around small animals, you
hmm
become kind of aware so you don't step on them.
right,
Like, at least I know that because I have, cats and then, small dog and everything too. And you get kind of used to kind of knowing it's weird. You get like a sort of sixth sense about it. So I wonder that too, if you're just picking up on not wanting to step on it, but being aware then that there might be something there to step on that's not there. So that's really neat too.
yeah, yep. I had that a few times, and so that's when I was wondering, what's going on here? And then eventually, that kind of stopped. But there was one day I saw it was just an all white cat out on the patio. We just have these cement patios outside in the back, and I saw it through the window. And this was not long after my paternal grandfather had passed away, and so I was still very much, of course, sad and everything. But this one day I saw this cat just sitting outside, looking in the window right at me, and a big old fluffy white cat, and it was just really weird how still it was, and this presence I felt from it. And I look away, and I go away for a few minutes, and come back, and it would be there, either still be there or be there again. I don't know for sure, but always right there. And it only lasted like this one morning. Um, and then so at the time I didn't think too much of it. I thought, well, that's interesting. That's just that cat was interested in me for whatever reason. Um, but then years later, after I got Logan, there was this one day, middle of the day again, where I was coming home. I came home from errands, and I noticed what I thought was Logan at the window next to the door, because the window next to the door is that one of those floor to ceiling windows, uh, and so the cat can sit in the window and look outside. And I thought it was Logan, but I thought that the sunlight was making her look all white because it was really sunny out that day. And so I opened the door, went to open the door, and this cat went behind the door as I was opening it. So I didn't open it much. I just opened it enough to get in. And when I closed it, I looked behind it. Logan was not there. And so I quickly closed the door, hoping I was worried that she had somehow gotten around me. No, she was asleep on a rocking chair by the back door. And I realized, sort of playing the memory back in my mind, no, that cat I saw in the window was all white. And it was really wild because it did that thing that Logan will do where she'll walk behind the door, but again, this cat was just all white and then it was gone. And so I thought that was really odd. And around the same time, every so often I would get this feeling of when I'd be laying in bed. Now, a lot of times when Logan jumps or gets onto the bed or off of the bed, whenever she does that, she'll make a sound and you'll feel the whole bed shift a little bit, move a little bit from the impact. But there would be some times, and this still happens once in a great while, where I would look, I would know she was not there, and I would feel just the feeling of a cat walking around in the bed, not the feeling of it getting on or getting off of the bed. And there was one time I even sat up halfway and looked, and of course, as soon as I did that, the feeling stopped. And so that happened a couple of times, a few times over the years. And there was this one day where I had fallen asleep in my chair, and I was having a regular dream. I don't remember now what the dream was. Like I could tell it was just a regular dream, but that ended and faded away. And after it did that, in my mind, I started to see this big, all white cat with these blue eyes, just sitting there, right in front of me, and it wasn't moving, didn't do anything. It was just like it was just saying hello, and I got this feeling from it like this cat is ancient, or like the sense of it knows a lot, it's seen a lot, and I was just amazed by this. But then I started getting this heavy feeling, and I started to wake up. Well, it turns out the heavy feeling was Logan sitting on my stomach. And she was already a full-grown cat at this point, looking at me. And she hardly ever did. Once she was not a kitten anymore, she stopped doing that. So for her to be sitting on my stomach while I was in a chair, was just, that's the only time she's ever done that, ever. And I've had her now for like 12, almost 13 years or so. And, 14, yeah, about 14 years. So, and what I got the sense of was like, I think Logan was picking up on this other cat, and maybe, I don't know if it was because this other cat was projecting to my mind, that Logan didn't like that, and so she got up on top of me and just woke me up, like, hey, what's going on here? And as soon as I woke up, she jumped down, which of course kind of hurt because she uses her back legs and she doesn't just walk down; she jumps down. So, but anyway, and there's a couple times after that where when I'd be sitting here at my table with all my computer and my TV and stuff on the other table next to me, there was a couple of times where I would hear the sound of this cat walking around on the table behind my TV. But it was the same thing as with the bed where I never heard this cat jump on or off of the table. And that's how I knew it wasn't Logan, because she would go on the table too and go behind the TV. But I would always hear her getting on or off the table. And so, yeah, I have a ghost cat that stops by once in a while, does all that stuff. It will also sort of nudge one of the kitchen cupboard doors, the lower ones, and make it open a little bit and then let it close. And Logan does that once in a great while. But there was one time I heard that sound and I was going to tell her to stop. And I looked down next to me and she was laying on the floor right by me. So that wasn't her. So anyway, I have a ghost cat that comes by here and there.
Really funny. With cats, the first when your grandfather had passed away, the interesting timing on the white cat showing up at the door. There's a whole mythos, similar to black cats about white cats, and there's a kind of a I don't know if you'd call it like it's conflicting stories, but there is kind of about black cats are lucky or they're unlucky, and the same with white cats, that sort of thing. But they seem to carry some kind of all different types of cats, though yellow tabbies, so on and so forth. They supposedly yellow tabbies make the best type of familiars, and things like there's all kinds of weird mythos like that. But it's so interesting with that aspect. But it reminds me too, and it does sound like you have a ghost cat. But I moved into a house, that same house I was talking about with the door problem. And the original owner had passed away, had passed away in the at the well had a fall and then had passed away due to that fall later on at a nursing home. And when I moved into the house, and I got it at a very, it was like it was very cheap rent, but it was left basically like it was, how it had been. So there was like stacks of magazines and all kinds of stuff. And when I was cleaning out the house, I tore out wallpaper and all kinds of stuff because it was that sort of situation. And I moved all these magazines, and I found in the closet in one of the rooms that there had been a litter box. There was like litter there, So I cleaned all that up and everything, and I was like, oh, there's the old man had a cat, that kind of thing, because it was an elderly gentleman who had lived in the house prior. And then I moved into the house, and then one day it came with some furniture. There was a table and chairs that was left in the kitchen. And I came home from work, and I walked into the house, and I walked into the kitchen, and then I turned around, and there was a gray cat laying on the table. I don't know how it got in the house or anything, but there was an old gray cat, because it had like a notch in the ear, and it was, it looked like an older cat. And I was like, whoa, it was just in the house.
Wow.
And I went over to it and like looked at it and like was, like, what are you, just surprised it was there. And I went to kind of reach out and like move it off the table, sort of. And it kind of made that low cat warning noise, you know. And I,
like,
and
no.
no. So I was like, okay, all right. And that house came with that cat. And I found out from the neighbor that the cat's name was Jumper. And it was that old man's cat. And that was that cat's house. And I lived there with that cat. And it kind of just came and went. And I fed it and watered and everything. And it came with the house and literally lived there. It was so strange. And it wasn't like a pet. I just fed him and he would come and go, and be on the porch and be in the house sometimes, And eventually it was like probably several months. And I wasn't seeing him as much, but he was kind of coming and going from the neighbor's house too, because they were also feeding him. And so, I wasn't too worried about it, but it was just, I let him go ahead and just be that way, like go ahead and be in the house. But it was so strange that he didn't, nobody, I guess he just wasn't, nobody knew he was there, like no family or anything like that, and that would come and adopt him or anything. But the house literally came with a cat. It was this the strangest thing. And he was kind of a grumpy old cat, He was really neat, And I pet him a couple of times, but he was kind of wild and just sort of, he had to have been, I don't know how old he was, but he was definitely an older cat. Has some battle scars type of thing. But it's so funny. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So so there's that. I did mention the shadow figure in the closet. I should probably go over that as well. Yeah, because, and actually I say shadow figure in the closet. I only saw it as a shadow figure a couple times after, and it wasn't in the closet. But the whole thing with that was, I don't know, not too long after I had vacated the bedroom after I was not using the bedroom as a bedroom anymore. It became a storage room. I started noticing that at night, I would get this feeling like there was someone in the closet, but I never got a bad feeling. It was more of just like I won't bother you, so don't bother me kind of a feeling. And I had no problem with that. I just would, whenever I go to that room to take something out or put something in, I would just say as I got to the door, "I'm just coming in here just to do this real quick, and I'll be right out." And I never had a problem with that. And this lasted for several years until, I don't know, just about 3 or 4 years ago. I'm terrible with time, but around there. And there's this one night I was sitting here listening to podcasts on paranormal things, and I got a feeling like there was someone coming through the hallway, the short little hallway I have out from the bedroom. And I looked, and there was this shadow. It wasn't a figure. It was just an oval the size of a person, and it was a shadow uh, just right by the kitchen doorway. And it just stayed there for a little while, and then I saw it go back towards the bedroom. And I did this a couple nights in a row. And then once it did that, after that second night, I never sensed it in that closet or in that room ever again. And so I wondered after that, and I feel like now, thinking back on it, I think that was sort of their way of saying thanks for letting me use your space and goodbye, you know. And and so yeah, it was really odd because it was just this presence, but it was like it just needed a place to be at night, and for whatever reason it chose here. I do think, and I always felt like there was some kind of energy in the wall of that closet. I almost wonder now I'm thinking about it. I wonder if that's where that weird feeling from the room came from. Was that wall? I get almost now I think of it almost like maybe it was a portal or of some kind way back when that is now not really active, because it's not like anything really has happened in that room now for since that figure left, really. But I still, whenever I go to that room, my eyes are drawn to that wall. Whenever I'm outside, um, my eyes are drawn to that wall. So I don't know what it is about that, but yeah. And I never saw that figure again, but I have seen just the top third or so, like the shoulders up of a shadow a couple times over the years here since then. But I didn't get the same feeling, and I was able to tell a difference of like shoulders and a head. But it was just here for a second and then gone. So I don't think those were the same as that figure that was in the closet. So I had a couple little shadow figure experiences, but not very many.
The whole closet experience it's so familiar to me too. I don't know what it is about that, but they've, everyone has feelings about closets and has experiences with it, typically from childhood and things like that. But you remember that house I was telling you about, where I also wouldn't sleep in the bedroom? In that house, I had the bedroom in the middle that felt like a breezeway, and then the other bedroom that, was a designated bedroom, but I just never used it. Also, I mostly didn't use it. Like I tried sleeping in it a couple times, and on one of those occasions when I did, there was a closet in that bedroom that was just like this was an older house, like an old farmhouse. But I remember hearing this sound, and I woke up and I looked over there, and it's that in between sleep and awake state. But I swear that I saw what looked like an older man, like the door open, and it looked like somebody and I was half asleep, so it kind of felt like almost like a dream or something. But he sort of leaned out of the door, and it was an older man with like no hair on top but on the sides. I could see that. It was like low, I had like, there was some kind of light in the room or something, but he had glasses on, and I could see the light reflecting off of his glasses. And I sat up and like turned the light, and there was like nothing there.
Right.
But
Wow.
it was the strangest thing, and I don't know it was like seconds, of seeing it, flipping the light switch was right by where the bed was, and so I just flipped the light switch on. And there was absolutely nothing because I did it almost immediately. But I saw before I did that what looked like he was just almost like opening the door and like just not looking at me or anything, but like looking into the room. But it looked like he had. It was like I could tell that he was no hair on top, but it was like on the sides. I could see him, and I could see the light reflecting off of his glasses. That was like on, like a TV or something like that in the room. But and then as far as we were talking about the walls, people do weird things. Like my mother told me about how she would hide her diary like on a string that was hanging like on the in between wall of a staircase. And if somebody would ever move into that house that she had lived in, it was there. And I heard, like there was where I used to live, long time ago, but near the house I'm talking about, actually, there were these old Victorian homes, and they had converted them all into apartments. So there would be 3 or 4 apartments in each of these Victorian houses.
Right.
And they were remodeling one of these, and they found one of them, they found bottles hidden inside the wall. They would find stuff just in the walls, which is just really odd. I don't know why you would do that, but who knows, But there is something there could have very well been something in the wall or something to do with the wall. Or the wall may not have even been there at one point. There's that possibility. So who knows?
Yeah. Yeah. And we'll be talking about closets and doorways and stairways and hallways and stuff. Probably the next time we get together, actually. I think that's the plan. So that'll be a good conversation, because there is something to those spaces that are not occupied for the majority of the time, where either you're just storing things or you're coming and going, and because they just seem to be really active locations in general. Um, so it didn't remind me too of another closet in my apartment here. This one is just before I get to my living room, and every so often while I'm here, uh, it'll happen while I'm here. I'll know because I'll walk by and it'll be closed, and then a while later I'll look, and this one closet door will be open, and it never makes a sound when it opens, which is odd because it's one of those sliding metal closet doors that folds in on itself. So it usually makes noise when you open it, at least some, and it'll just be open, and and it's not Logan. I can usually hear when she's messing with the closet door because she's bumping into it, she's pushing it, and I can hear that. And she hardly ever does that anyway. So yeah, it's little stuff like that around here. That's really most of what it is. There's a whole. I think I'll save the whole series of blue light sightings, which did happen outside of this apartment, maybe for next time, and also the laundry room. Actually, there's a couple things to do with that whole building as well, uh, because had an experience in there too. So uh, I think that's actually a good place to call it without going through
Yeah,
everything tonight here.
I'm
So
looking forward to it. That'll be really fun to talk about. Yeah, I'm gonna save the rest of any kind of closet story, anything like that, for the corridor show
yeah.
that we do sometime in the future. That'll be fun. So I'm looking forward to that, and I had a great time talking with you. And again, thank you for having me as always.
Oh, thank you for being here as always. It's always great to talk with you, and this has been great doing this just because it's always better when you get other people to comment and question things. So thank you again, and I'll talk to you soon. So
Thank you so much. Have a good night, James.
you as well. And yeah, so everyone, thank you for listening in. And sorry there, Chef Pete. We could talk after if you want, but not doing a call-in show tonight. But that does remind me, in a few weeks here, a couple weeks. No, yeah, a couple weeks, and yeah, let me see here, a couple weeks, I think, around there, maybe 3 weeks total. is going to be the 1000th episode of this show. And that night, that will be a call-in show. And so that'll be a lot of fun. That'll be the experiences. I'll be sharing experiences. And everyone will be welcome to call in and comment on them and or just talk, and we'll go from there. But everyone, thank you for listening and being here. And I will talk to you all next time on Salsido Paranormal.